master facilitator in international e-commerce, Josh Halpern, who is, well, if you haven't had a chance to even learn from him or see him present, you'll understand why he plays such a pivotal role. Meanwhile, he's zooming in for us, people that it's only an hour and 15 minutes, so we could never have gotten them here. And yet they're going to be able to share their expertise in this area, and you can ask questions. And I feel like it's a richer environment than just a webinar. Plus, at the end of the day, we're still going to go to the receptions. We still have that. So we're still together as a group, but we bring in, and if this works, it might be a way to help focus on some of these really detailed topics. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to again.
Thank you, Jim. It's good to be here. Thank you. All right. So we're going to go on a quick journey through B2B e-commerce cross-border land. I appreciate you all being here. We have some great speakers here. I'm super excited about this panel. So I'm going to say that all in front of you. Not even if you weren't here, though, I would say the same thing. We've got Tom Dustman coming from Sunnen Products. He obviously a massive company. I'll let him do a quick intro. But they are selling B2B globally. We've got Brian here from Avalara, a company that I rely on a lot for duties and tax and compliance, but they've had a lot of new tools around B2B, and I want to get his input, but he's also been in a lot of other places before that, so we'll be picking his brain. Ben, obviously from Hyland's Naturals. If you have any baby and you had used, they're all over and CVS's and everywhere, the homeopathic baby medicine. I call them placebos. Ben does not. My wife doesn't either. My wife swears by them. John Bertino, coming from the Agency Guide, he's got a very interesting piece of kind of nook in the market where he actually helps companies figure out which agencies to go through, because every agency says they can do whatever it is you're willing to pay them to do. And so I found it very useful, but he actually is specifically also an expert on SEO and B2B backlinks and marketing. So we're going to go to that at the end, because that's going to be very interesting to kind of cap it all off of. Once you figured out how to do B2B cross-border, how do you build your brand and how do you actually get exposure through the cross-border piece? What I'd like to ask is, if Tom, do you want to start by kind of giving a quick intro? We're just going to go left to right on the slide, just quick 3 minutes of what you're up to.
Sure. Thank you, Josh. And hello to everybody. I apologize for my background. I'm at a trade show in Chicago at this time, but my name is Tom Dustman. I'm the sales director for the international side of our business at Sunnen Products Company based in St. Louis, Missouri. I've been a part of Sunnen for 45 years in various capacities, and for the last 25 years, I've been involved in international business and was part of a task force to set up our B2B e-commerce capabilities. If you haven't heard of Sunnen Products Company, we are a 100-year-old machine tool manufacturer based in St. Louis, and we have a fairly large footprint. We've got 450 employees in our St. Louis headquarters, where we manufacture many of our products, and then we sell through our subsidiaries scattered around the globe. We have 14 of those subsidiaries, and we have 35 independent distributors. And our machinery is used in a multitude of different markets, from aircraft and aerospace to medical devices to hydraulic cylinder repair. All of the steel chainsaw and string trimmer engines are honed on Sunnen machinery. We help to hone the backbone of Starlink satellites that get launched every week or so for Mr. Musk. So we've got a wide variety of products that we offer, and it's my pleasure to be a part of this panel. It should be interesting, and again, we'll look forward to working with Josh to answer many of your questions.
Thanks, Tom. And again, what's the average price or order value, would you say, for your product?
Yeah, sure. So we sell capital equipment. Our list price on the smallest machine we make is about $20,000. We can sell a customized honing solution for $1,500,000. And our consumables, much like the razor blades for Gillette, we sell consumable items that are used in the process, and those range from a few dollars all the way up maybe to $30, $40, $50, something like that.
That's great. So that speaks to the idea that it's not everything that you're selling when we sell B2B is a $20,000 unit, but there are the consumables, there's the repurchasing of the component parts. it doesn't have to be all or nothing doing e-commerce, but parts of what you do should be able to be infused by the e-commerce channel. So great. Brian.
You got it. Thanks, Josh. And by the way, I'm the second bald guy in the group of 3 bald guys on that picture. So
Yeah,
just in case
I'll
you're not
point him
sure.
out right there. Yeah, great. Thank you.
So my name is Brian Kelly. I'm the solution sales specialist with Avalara. I support our US sales team. I support our European sales team. And I also support our Australian sales team with anything and all things when it comes to cross-border transactions, whether it be compliance or calculations. I get into the support mechanism for those global transactions. I've spent 15 plus years in the international cross-border world, starting from Pitney Bowes and postal consolidation type offerings to FedEx cross-border when they did that expansion of their cross-border technology. And then now the last 4 years with Avalara, where again, we're supporting anything and all things cross-border. We have customers that start from the highest marketplaces out there that utilize our service, all the way down to mom and pop shops that ultimately want to automate those landed costs for cross-border transactions.
Very cool. Thanks, Brian. And we're going to get into that a lot more in a
You
bit.
got it.
So I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, Ben Singer.
Thank you, Josh. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. My name is Ben. I've been with Hyland for close to 15 years. Hyland is a U.S. leading manufacturer of natural over-the-counter toddler and baby medicine. We've been doing this for a very long time and are really the leaders in cough and cold for kids under 5, under 4 years old. When I joined Hyland, we did not have an international division. I was brought in as a friend of a friend who was lucky to get trusted with such a task. And I was given a computer and a telephone, and I was told to figure it out. Meaning, I've been exporting from the very, very basic process to what it is now become a B2B or a DTC, direct to consumer through e-commerce. So I've evolved from selling and trading across the border in Mexico to what's really today a whole new ballpark in e-commerce, which it's changing very, very fast. At any rate, we've been in business for 115 years. We're about 120 people in our factory located in Los Angeles. It's a U.S. company with U.S.-made products, and I'm happy to be part of this conference. So I'll pass it on back to you, Josh.
Thanks a lot, Ben. And so I've worked with Ben for probably a decade. We've done everything from, started out just me pulling him into everything I could to just speak on stuff, but we've actually done some projects together. He's the type of person who, as he said, will just get it done, and he's in 20 different markets, different distributors. And then he'll go into the market, he'll see his product on the shelf, figure out what's going on, what the challenges might be, and working with distributors. The reason he's on this is there's a B2B piece. Obviously, most of his business is B2B. He sells to other distributors around the world, and we're going to pick his brain around how do you evaluate a distributor's ability to get your products online, and how do you deal with some of that channel conflict as well when you're talking about some direct-to-consumer versus some B2B distribution in market, right? That's a big challenge that I'm sure a lot of your companies are going to face. Because as they're transitioning from, hey, I sell to a distributor in market, we've been doing it for 15 years, but you know, they're basically going to do the same thing I could do, which is now sell direct to consumer on the website or direct to the other B2B buyer on a website or on social even. We've got channel conflict, and how do we deal with that? So we'll talk to Ben and others around that too. Thank you, Ben. And then John.
Yes, hi everybody. John Bertino, founder and CEO of The Agency Guide. I've been in marketing and e-commerce for almost 20 years now. As Josh alluded to, The Agency Guide, we often go by TAG, the acronym, is a unique marketing consultancy in that we represent right around 300 different carefully selected and vetted marketing agencies, consultants, and toolset providers to whom we're often matchmaking to different brands and projects based on their specific needs. We also run a more formal agency search firm operation under TAG. By more formal, I mean that in addition to agency matchmaking, we can also assist brands in the creation of detailed RFPs to help them find and source agencies in the first place. We can act as a consultant to help serve in the interviewing of agencies to ask the right and difficult questions to ask when you're looking to hire an agency. and everything that comes with just the laborious process of finding the right agencies and interviewing them and all that stuff. We also have an in-house brand strategy and brand development unit. It's not my unit, not really what I do, but we have that unit. It's my business partner, Steven, holds that down. And we also have always been kind of in a side business unit doing blogger outreach and digital PR. We're about to spin that out under a new brand. We just haven't quite done that yet. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. But when it comes to international cross-border e-commerce, we deal with a lot of food and beverage CPG brands, a lot of industrial products and manufacturers. If you search food product marketing or how to market a food product or food marketing consultant, you'll usually find us top 5 on Google. Same thing for industrial product marketing and how to market an industrial product. We're all over the place. So that's what we do, and excited to share some insights on digital PR and SEO today.
Thank you very much, John. Okay, so we've got questions for Tom. We got to start with the Big T. Do you ever go by Big? Did anyone call you? What's a nickname, Tom, that you had as a child?
Oh, people have used the Big T before, but typically
Really?
it's Dusty.
It's Dusty. Okay, I was
Yeah.
so impressed with myself. A Big T. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me put you up here. Hold on. We're gonna ask you questions. First question: Sunnen has begun a journey of e-commerce over 100,000 SKUs. We talked about that. What are the challenges you're facing?
Sure, Josh. So let me just state that again, much like Gillette, and I think that's something that most of you have. There is a razor, and then there are the razor blades. And what we have utilized in our B2B e-commerce capability are the equivalent of Gillette's razor blades. So we have, again, about 100,000 SKUs that we have included. So we had quite a journey because we had to ensure we had a part number assigned. We had to have a description of the product, so it followed a very logical path in the description, because sometimes our descriptions were for the customer. Sometimes those descriptions were utilized for internal use. So we had to make sure we had good descriptions of our product. We photographed our product to ensure that people could see what they were buying and make sure that it looked like what they were consuming. And then we put it out on the web, and we began in the United States for our customers there. And so the B-commerce had begun with an outbound effort. We had inside sales people notifying our existing customers that we did offer B2B capabilities, and that it would be maybe a convenient way for them to send an order to us, as opposed to maybe sending us a fax back in the day, perhaps an email, or even a phone call. And we felt that this would be a great way for us to ensure fewer errors. They'd be able to see the price and availability for the product right away. And it's begun to be adopted by our customer base. And typically Sunnen has customers that we classify in four different classes. We have strategic accounts who buy more than $100,000 a year from us. We have premier accounts who buy maybe $50,000 to $100,000 from us. We have key accounts who are maybe between $5,000 and $50,000. And then we have core accounts, very small, so sole proprietor, mom and pop shops, if you will, that we have over 100,000 customers who buy less than $5,000 a year with us. And so that's how we began the process. And certainly there were challenges because, as you heard me state, we had to take photographs, which had to be done properly and with a decent background and represent the product properly. Then we had to ensure that we had the proper price. We had to ensure that we had that proper description. And so we've overcome all of those challenges. And then one of the things that always happens is that whatever consumable item we have, a customer would say, well, do you have something slightly different? And for us, it may be a little harder product, or maybe a a little finer sandpaper type of product. And so we now opened up to have what we call customer special items. And on the initial order, if the customer wants that special item, it is not available to them on e-commerce. They have to call in. We have to understand what their needs are for that special item. But once we understand that need, we then put that capability of that product on their B2B price list. And then subsequent orders, we were able to fulfill their orders with that special item. So the first time out, there is a bit of a concern if someone wants something unique or special or custom. We have to take that first order, sprinkle some fairy dust, wave the magic wand, and then on the second and following orders, we're able to handle that. One of the other challenges we do see also is related to spare parts, maintenance items, especially since the pandemic. Prices are all over the map, fluctuating constantly, some going up, some reducing. And so we keep our repair parts out of B2B e-commerce at this time, but we plan to introduce those. So again, it's a redo, if you will, making sure we've got the proper photographs, proper descriptions, etc. So I hope that all helps you to get an understanding of some of those challenges.
It does, Tom. Let's just try to do something. So domestically, the order process, somebody wants to buy a product right now domestically in the US, somebody goes to your website, they may like a product if they aren't already speaking to a sales rep, and then they call or email to do an off-site transaction for large initial orders, let's say, or even any initial orders. Then
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's exactly the way it works, Josh. So we give them an account number, we give them a user ID and password, so they're able to then connect into our system, and they're able to place items in a cart. When they've completed all of the shopping that they'd like to do, they can check out. We would qualify them from an export compliance standpoint, even if they're a US-based company, because sometimes you run into some problems. We check them overnight to ensure that they're not a sanctioned company or a denied party. And that with that confirmation, then we will process their order. We allow them occasionally in the United States to be open account. Many times it's by a credit card being paid in US dollars.
Okay, I just want to go back before we get into some of those weeds, and I'm sure Brian has some comments around the compliance and the denied party stuff. But the process again, you said they put everything in a cart,
yes,
and then they can click. They can actually pay, or they have to. No, they still have to wait, get verification from you to then go purchase.
Now they still have to wait verification until we have vetted them properly through denied parties.
Okay, major friction point, obviously, as we know. And something that I think is going to be changing. Brian, do you have an issue? I don't want to jump ahead, but let's not jump ahead. We're going to talk about denied parties and all that complexity. But now for the repeat orders, you've already verified a buyer. They bought something initially. Now they want to go back and say, hey, I need this little left-handed widget. Do you actually have left-handed widgets? Do those exist?
No, I'm sorry. We don't have left-handed, but we've got coarser and finer. How about that?
Perfect. So then you actually want to repeat, you can buy it yourself at that point. You don't need to connect with anybody?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's a super exciting time for Sunnen and for us to be listening and witnessing this, because they are in the very throes of kind of dealing with that bridge between self-service and actually having to have a real person there. Yes.
Do foreign buyers go to US website, or we have website in each country?
Do you hear that, Tom? So then now we're transitioning to your international experience. So an international buyer goes to what website? Yeah.
Yeah. So again, the Sunnen customers in Canada have been authorized now to participate in our B2B e-commerce capability. And so again, we deal with the Canadians with their ability to do the initial order just as we treat the US customers. We again check denied parties, we check sanction list, and we would confirm that they are a customer we want to do business with and they're not bad guys. And then we typically are going to be allowing them to order in Canadian dollars or US dollars. So we sometimes have some FX issues there. But again, we try to lock down our exchange rate. So we don't do it day by day, week by week. We typically try to hold any exchange rate variation in our Canadian prices so that we vary maybe twice a year. Certainly that can be adjusted if there's some sort of an economic issue that we all face. But if everything seems to be relatively stable, we let the exchange rate continue. But we do monitor it monthly to make sure we aren't going to be upside down.
I'm going to touch on that. I'm going to go to the second question, then Brian, I'm coming to you for the third one. But before I get to the second question, so Tom, one of the things you're saying there is feasible right now. He's selling into Canada. There's not a lot of variation in currency that he has to be worrying about. But twice a year, you could be, as you call it, upside down in that scenario. And certainly when you go international with other markets, correct?
That's exactly right. Yep, we worry about that.
So how do you deal with that, or how do you plan on dealing with that?
Yeah, so through many of our capabilities, we will always try to price in US dollars, and many companies that we deal with have that capacity. On the other hand, if we cannot trade in dollars, we will trade in what I would refer to our mainline currencies. So again, it might be a euro as an example. However, one of the challenges that we expect to be seeing coming up is when we turn on direct sales through e-commerce into Mexico, and that will probably happen sometime next year. You talk about a currency that fluctuates a fair amount. It's the Mexican peso. So we're going to be very, very conscious of that exchange rate for sure. And so we're talking with our commercial bank about how to best hedge against some of those fluctuations.
Now, there are a number of fintech companies out there now that are dealing with this issue. It's a major issue. One of the ways they do it is, and you can contact me after at some point. I'm currently talking about 3 or 4 to see which one would be better than others for certain pieces. But one of the concepts is they already have bank accounts in all these countries. They keep you actually get a purchase. They'll take that purchase, and that money will stay, let's say, in Mexico. And then if you need it, you bring it back. Otherwise, it sits there and it could be used for other services in country, whether it's marketing, whether it's purchasing or supply chain issues. But it tries to mitigate some of the need to bring money back and then back over. That's the overall commission piece. The fluctuation piece is also something where they'll kind of guarantee within a certain period, if you make a purchase. Let's say this happens a lot with even B2C companies. Somebody will make a purchase, say, I really love this sweater. They sit in your checkout counter, and 2 weeks later, you will go and purchase it. But the price actually has changed because the currency is different. And so the buyer is, God bless you. The buyer isn't happy with that. In your case, you can get screwed as well. So what they'll do is kind of guarantee for a certain period of time those prices. But when you get to massive orders, not for the widgets, I mean, there's certain parts of the time, I guess you could do it, but when massive orders, you've got to have a better solution. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, Josh. And I might mention to the audience that Sunnen has a huge amount of consumable item inventory. And so typically if someone orders 92% of the time, we're going to be able to ship same day or next day.
Wow.
Which really helps us to mitigate any currency risk. But there are occasions where somebody wants to buy something special or unique, and the lead times could be 6 to 8 weeks. And in that time frame, there could be some currency fluctuations from time of pricing to time of invoicing. So we do have those issues.
Ben, do you deal with this at all? Is this touching on anything that I should bring you in on?
Sure. We don't deal much with currency fluctuation. All of our quotes and payments are made in US dollars. So the risk is taken by our distributors in country. They don't necessarily love that because they will take the loss. On the other hand, they'll take the win. In the case, to Tom's point, in Mexico, yes, the currency does fluctuate, but we quoted them at 20 pesos to the dollar 4 years ago, and for the last 3, it's been at 17. So it goes both ways. Our safest way, luckily, is that we're able to close on US dollars, and they do take the risk on our behalf, and that's where that's how we operate on the Hyland side.
Okay, thank you. Let me get into ERPs really quickly. Can you just touch on this issue? Because I thought it was fascinating when you're talking about what was your original suggestion when you were a young, spry man? Not that you're
Sure.
not now, Tom.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, I certainly look older than I am, I guess. But here we go. Back in the day, when Sunnen had the ability to set up and acquire distributors that we've turned into subsidiaries. My pitch to our CEO at the time was, Mike, you need to make sure that every one of these subsidiaries is on the same ERP system, because if you don't, and we've got unique ERP systems, the ability to be able to communicate through these systems is going to be a really significant hurdle we've got to get over. And I thought I made the appropriate pitch, but I wasn't the salesman that I thought I was. And so the CEO said, no, we're going to let everybody have their own ERP system. And there is a significant problem with that, because with an independent ERP system, your ability to get coordination, to be able to get information at your fingertips, it just isn't there. So you've got to sometimes wait overnight. You've got to be able to try to get some integration, which only costs more money to hire a company to be able to figure out how to integrate Select Line with Oracle in some aspects. If there is a watch out, it is if you're going to do small business internationally with subsidiaries, make sure you've got one common ERP system.
Much easier said than done, obviously, because they have distributors have other companies they work with that have different ones, right? But
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone know questions on what an ERP is, an ERP system, and all that stuff? Or but you want to describe, Tom, what an ERP system is?
Sure. An ERP system is a requirements plan, and so what we typically do is we'll look at history by SKU, and we will try to plan our system around that specific part number. And when we sell through a distributor, we have no visibility. We have one sale to a distributor or a subsidiary, and they may have fluctuations in the number of customers and what their overall business strategies are. And so the requirements plan help to drive capital expenditures for machine tools. They help to drive labor through our personnel area, which includes training, which every facet of business. There's no one area of a business that isn't touched by the basis of a good ERP system. And so I think that's essentially the basis of it. And again, as I have up on the screen here, Sunnen is an Oracle house, but our Swiss subsidiary that acts as a hub for all of Europe operates under Select Line. And so through Select Line, they can't see what we have in inventory. And likewise, we can't see what they have in inventory through our Oracle lenses. So it gets very confusing.
In a lot of ways, this is a non-starter if you want to be doing e-commerce. I mean, if you don't know what your inventory is, you don't know what the products are out globally, it's really hard for you to understand how much, if you're going to be delivering products and someone buys something, now you've got thousands of people that could go to your website and just place an order without you having any interaction. You need to know what inventory you have, what pieces you have in market, what ability you have to replenish that order. That is all critical stuff. You also have to think about this layer, which we aren't talking about now with ERP, but are you having a website that's global and then you're delivering from the US? Are you going to still work with your distributors at market, but you're going to have certain SKUs that are available globally through your website? So is your website going to be uniquely isolated to SKU sets, but global? Or is it going to be everything but certain regions, right? There's two different ways to do it. You got to figure out how you want to do that. In general, I mean, if you have certain consumables like Tom has, it might not be a bad idea to have a central, if you even could, a centralized global inventory for just a certain, like the kind of consumables, and you deliver those globally, and then you have the local subsidiaries deal with the heavier machinery that requires also some after sales. Question, yes.
Somewhat related, I was here in your session yesterday.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about the difference between, for example, SunnenProducts.com here in the US, whether they would want to have a .mx.
Yeah, great question.
Or whether they would have, just use the same website, you said, and then a Mexico.
Yes.
So identifier. I would be very interested to hear what his company's doing because, for example, in our state, North Carolina, we engaged with the STEP program, this grant, and a lot of people are using that money to set up the dot
CA, yes, exactly.
or dot CA. Yet yesterday you sort of pointed out that maybe that's not the right way to go anyway.
No,
But
but
you lose all your Google.
yeah,
connections.
use all the juice, and you're not getting the benefits that you think you are in terms of localization, because that's not related to the architecture, because you can localize anyway. But there's lots of agencies out there will take step money for doing that. Yes. Oh, do you want to talk about that, Tom? Just and then Ben, I'm going to ask you because you have a very different dynamic. But Tom, for you specifically, that owns the entire global, branding and facilitation.
Yeah, so Josh, you'll have to repeat a little bit. I wasn't able to get all of the questions.
Do you guys have a .com that services everywhere, or do you have subsidiaries that have the local websites? And I'm going to guess that's probably the answer. But
yeah, so we have local websites that all funnel up to the Sunnen master website, and on our master website we do have various languages that customers can utilize that would get them the necessary translations. But typically, any of our independent distributors, they have their own website, and it links to Sunnen.
And usually that's the quagmire that is normal, but not the best scenario, right? Like the distributors locally, generally, they want control over it. They're going to want to they want to do that. They've probably got their own website stuff. They're like, just leave me alone. It's hard. Yeah.
I was just going to say, Josh, that's part of the reason why we help to organize Sunnen with sales channel partners that are subsidiaries, because now we can control their activities. But with an independent distributor, they may having multiple lines and they may want their own look as opposed to the look that Sunnen organizes.
Perfect cue to Ben, who has local distributors and you don't own any of that.
That is correct. And our model that has worked for us, it's because the nature of our products, which are over-the-counter medicines, most customers want the product the same day or the day after. So we have to localize our e-commerce to each of our traditional distributors in country. For example, Mexico, Hong Kong, we shipped finished goods to that customer, that distributor in country. They will store the product and then they will sell locally to their local Amazon.mx or Amazon.Singapore, into the China market as well. But because of the urgency of the product, we have it in country. We don't ship from the US any of our products. It can take 3, 4, or 5 days. By the time the product arrives, the child is probably over the cold already. And the second point, which is also very important in our case, over-the-counter medicines are highly regulated, not only in the US by the US FDA, but every market has the equivalent to a US FDA. Smaller economies, Central America, for example, if you can provide to them FDA documentation, they don't need in-country registration. They don't have the resources or the team, the staff to manage that. And even then, in those small markets, our e-commerce is localized through their own websites. Most of our distributors don't necessarily have their own marketplace, but they jump on board the Amazons of the world or the Mercado Libres for Latin America to meet that in-country regulatory framework, but most importantly, because of the speed that we can get the product to the end consumer, given that it is a medicine.
That's an interesting part around channel conflict and starting to get involved with, like, okay, if you're going to sell, if you're selling direct to your consumer, you're going to have a lot of upset distributors in market, right? So you can do things like isolate your SKU set and give them certain things, but certain things are still direct. But in Ben's case, if you don't have a consumer that's willing to wait, you've got to bring it in market, probably B2B in market, and then have the B2B distributor take it from there. But you're going to lose visibility of who's buying your product. So there's a lot of issues there.
I do not know who in country is buying the product as the end consumer, but I do have visibility to their in-house inventory, so we can plan and have a forecast of what this customer will need in terms of solid deliverable product in time to keep their warehouse up to date. We don't all share the same system. We're very archaic in that way. We get a weekly Excel report that each distributor sends to us, and we've created an in-house VLOOKUP sort of Excel application that allows me to dump these numbers, and then it gives me certain data points that I'm looking for. Other distributors do furnish a finished report, but we do have visibility to what they have, so we can plan ahead on what is to be shipped. And of course, purchase orders are done and purchase orders are received, but we do have visibility to their inventory in hand.
Oh, yes.
Are you suggesting that like Mercado Libre, that there's not sufficient sales through that one channel, Ben, that you just wouldn't go direct to Mercado Libre and have them fulfill it and skip the distributor? The distributor must be also serving other sales channels that are so valuable to you that you maintain the relationship with the distributor.
That is correct. They do have retail channels is my forte. The Walmarts, Rite Aid, CVS's, and Walgreens of that country are my bread and butter. The other point of why I want my in-country distributor to manage my online or our online business, it's because if I go directly to Mercado Libre or to Amazon MX, I'm in charge of making sure my product is ranking up when somebody looks it up. I have to be in charge of hiring the influencers. I'm in charge of pushing the product and marketing the product. So when someone in Brazil starts scrolling health cough for my baby, Hyland's will pop up. And we in the US do not have the ability, we don't have the resources, and more importantly, we don't have the know-how on how to market in 25 different markets, because each market has their own idiosyncrasies, and our distributors know that business better than nobody else. Their staff knows what the product and the moms in that country need, and we don't have that bandwidth to become marketing experts in 20 different markets. So to remain online, I do have to go through them as well. But retail is my main bread and butter for our sales internationally.
Thank you, Ben. Real quick, yes.
So is it safe to assume none of your companies use EDI, like third-party EDI, like SBS Commerce?
I do use EDI only in 2 markets, Mexico and Canada. Nobody else is as integrated as we are, because here in the US, every retailer demands that you have EDI.
You explain what EDI is for.
Yes, it's electronic data interchange. It's a third-party company where you as a trade partner and a retailer as a trade partner come together. There's membership, obviously, and that's how I was successfully shipping actually all over the world to military exchanges, apparel. That was our business, and we used SBS Commerce. The exchanges would put their purchase order on EDI, so no faxes, no emails. There's no such.
Interesting. Okay.
Been using it since probably 2009, and I send invoices, a Ben ship notice, and I do use Oracle as well as a shipping tool. And I don't ship internationally; I ship to distribution centers, and then they take care of it and get paid in US dollars.
Interesting. Okay. Thanks.
To start international shipping.
I wanted to also just highlight a piece around your contracts. When you're making your contracts with your, let's say you're doing B2B, there are a lot of different ways to do it now, because you can isolate e-commerce channels. We used to talk about this with B2C all the time, but it's actually starting to become a B2B option, where you can say to a distributor, and I don't know if you can effectively do it, but you can say to a distributor in country, well, actually, I still want to reserve the right to sell B2B on certain channels, or direct to consumer on Amazon, which isn't even direct to consumer as much anymore. It can also be a B2B sale because it's wholesale, depending on the product you're talking about. So remember that you have some ability sooner rather than later to create a contract that allows to carve out some ownership of this. Or you could say, you're going to take care of it, but I'm going to be the one who's managing and approves your website. We ran into this problem a lot where we were working with a beauty brand doing wholesale into Italy, and the distributor in Italy has really great ideas around visuals that we would never have approved. But we didn't have a contract that says we're going to disapprove it. So it was constantly a battle when they wanted to put some very flary type of branding on some of the stuff that we didn't approve of. So just remember, there's certain pieces that are overlapping. I'm going to stop right now. Brian, just so people stop having to listen to my voice, and because you know so much more, I'm going to go to this last question about compliance around, and then I'm going to go to the slides too, lead in, and you can interview Tom on this.
Yeah, no worries. And Tom already mentioned a few examples, but the key point behind what I'm going to discuss when we talk about compliance is being proactive. And what do I mean by that? Making sure that you understand your product. Tom brought up a great example of Gillette razors. Are they blades for a razor or are they blades for a weapon? Identifying those goods so they clear through customs are going to be a key component when you're being proactive with compliance. So understanding your products, understanding what they're made of, understanding what they're made for, and understand the industry that they're made for. Especially when Ben brings up the medical field, no longer are the days where you can just say they're supplements or they're vitamins. They want to understand the ingredients of those products. They want to understand if Tom's sending blades for a weapon or blades for a Gillette razor. So being proactive with your products, not just globally shipping outbound, but think about inbound when you import parts for your manufacturing companies. You want to understand what those parts are made for coming into the US because the US has become more strict with importing products into our country. So here's some of the complexities. And Josh, I don't know if you want me to just dive into a couple of these. Okay.
Yeah, if Tom, by the way, if Tom or Ben, you have any input right away, let us know, or specific examples, but as Brian's talking about it, but go for it, Brian.
Yeah, so move to the right, top right there, where managing trade restrictions and imports and exports. The last thing you want to do is ship something into a destination country where you assumed that you knew that appropriate code, that harmonized code for that product. Then that product gets stuck in customs because that customs clearance agent just isn't sure, thinks the code is inaccurate. Think about anyone in that room that's actually gone to a different country. The only way you're getting through customs is if you're showing that passport ID. Where are you from? What are you made of? Not necessarily what are you made of, but that's an HS code. And where are you going? Physical goods crossing borders are no different. Customs clearance agents want to know all of those details, not only for clearance purposes, but if you look at the top middle there, it's also for calculating those accurate duties or tariffs for that particular product. Okay.
And Brian, I want to just so I make sure that we're bringing it back home to the B2B versus B2C. How a lot of you know probably, or you've attended discussions around customs duties and tax, and we don't want to make this specifically, I mean, as much fun as it all is. But to the extent that it's B2B, could you talk a little bit, maybe take a step back, Avalara and the problem that you're solving for B2B companies in all of this, because we recognize this all sucks. Basically, we got that part. What do you guys solve for?
Identification of those products. What is the country of origin? Our team researches all of those things. What is the material of those products? And that material makes a difference on what that tariff code should be. So what we're solving for is the identification of those products, whether in bulk, business to business, or whether as individual parts or completed parts.
So you'll integrate into, let's say Tom, you don't use, do you use an Avalara or you use a tool like that?
No, we do not. But we do have challenges around what Brian's talking about, especially with importation, because now you need to know about child labor. You need to know about individuals who, I guess the best example maybe would be the Uyghurs in China that are forced labor. All those things are very, very important now.
And I'll add to that. He mentions different ERPs with different divisions that Tom has within his own organization. Now think about storing those HS classification codes to match your particular items. So now it's not a team effort to go search and track down what this product is. And can it cross a border? Is it restricted? You store those codes in your ERP systems, so it avoids Tom's team going out and saying, okay, the first time we're going to have to scramble to see what this first initial sale looks like. We get proactive. We store that HS code to match that item. So now the ERP accurately assesses and moves that code to the commercial documentation.
So now you can see why this is great just on a fundamental of B2B, but when we talk about e-commerce, this can start to automate itself. It can start to allow facilitation without having to jump off site to an email, to have a phone call, to have your staff doing it. Correct, Brian?
You got it. And I mean, you could certainly continue to do that depending on the complexity of your goods. But ultimately, if you have a detailed description of products, we should want to look at that as a proactive approach.
Yeah. Right.
And I'll mention the top challenge by not doing it. And here's what people's concerns are. Shipments are delayed in customs.
Right.
We're going to avoid a lot of that 56% of those concerns by clearly telling customs clearance, here's what I am, here's what I'm made of, and here's what I'm utilized for. Here's my code.
That's awesome. Okay. I don't know if you want to go into this deeper,
I think we're good. A customer experience is one of the other keys, but
Okay.
and again, it's just whether it's B2B or B2C, that customer experience, those delays ultimately drive that customer experience or avoiding those delays.
Yeah. No one here signed up for I'm realizing it as we're going through it, because I love this piece of it. No one signed up for this, but let's just talk about it from the context of why it becomes important, ultimately why it's important to hire someone else to do it, frankly.
I'll share two more slides, this one and the next one, and we could skip the next two.
Yeah.
So think about a customs clearance agent, what his job is. Think about a carrier. Their job is to move millions of boxes through customs every day. They're not going to stop and say, Tom, what was your product made of? Tom, what was the material of your product? Or Tom, what was the country of origin? They're pretty much going to either delay it and hold it in customs or assume it's something, and they'll always err on the side of the higher tariff rate. So if there's questions at customs, it's too late. You're either going to get delays or you're going to get a high tariff rate assigned to your products. Customs don't care. They want to move that product as fast as they can. I'll share one more slide, Josh.
Yeah. I like seeing and what that really means. I got one more after this that I want to show. Yeah.
Okay. So here's what we're telling customs clearance. And that first 6 digits on this code that you see are universal codes. World Customs Organization has 190 countries that ultimately want to understand what that 6-digit code is. It's country of origin. Where was it manufactured? It's material. It's industry. Believe it or not, it's also gender. Those first 6 digits, that's what's incorporated. The final 4 digits, it may be allowed into the US, but if it's bubble gum, believe it or not, you can't ship it into Singapore. So those final 4 digits are specific to the import country and ultimately could tag a restricted or prohibited product before you even ship it.
So this is the one that I like. I mean, not that I didn't like the last one, but look at the difference in, oh wait, no, here.
Yeah, that's it. You're good. There's two of these slides.
Yeah, I like this stuff.
So the final 4 digits. So think about countries that want to protect their own industry. Think about countries like Australia that say, we don't have a lot of manufacturing of shoes. We will put a more favorable tariff rate because we welcome shoes coming into our country. But again, those first 6 digits tell me this is a rubber sole, leather top, men's slipper. If it comes into the US, it's 12%. Australia, it's 5%. Japan, it's 30%. And if you leave that up to a customs clearance agent to guess what those final 4 digits are, guess where he's going to err? On the side of the 30% and move on. Go to the next slide, Josh, and I swear this will be my last one.
Oh, this is my favorite.
Yeah, okay. So even that country-specific code could change based on the industry of the product. And obviously, you see medical will give you a more favorable tariff rate if it's truly an industry and this shoe is truly made for medical purposes. If it's female, 11%, 18% if we indicate it as other. So again, If you're not telling a customs clearance agent how you made that shoe, what you made it for, and who's going to be utilizing it, they'll be guessing, and they'll be guessing on the higher percentage.
So this is great. What I think is interesting when you bring it back to the e-commerce, I know we have a question, is think about a world right now. This is all happening in the background. There are tools like this that will make this happen. Right now, if you're selling B2C on Shopify, Avalara plays a role in that. Shopify is not going out and figuring this all out, right? The Avalara drives behind that, behind a company called Global E, behind a company, there's a bunch of companies out there that are doing this. So for the D2C side, it's happening right now where you don't even have to freaking think about this ever because you're going to have it, for the most part, taken care of. B2B is catching up, and there are powers that do this for you for a B2B side that if you're not selling on Shopify because you've got your own system or your own site or you're building out your own custom things, you need, though, somebody to deal with this so you don't have to, because the prices can be crazy. It can kill your margins, and it kills you having to have an operational person that manages this stuff, and no single human can do it. So it's exciting to see this happening, but you got to be thinking about that from a global perspective. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Brian, and stay with us though. And Tom, do you have anything to add to that before I go to Ben?
No, I can tell you that from a practical standpoint, some of our products carry an ECCN of EAR 99, which means dual use. But there are occasions where we have what everybody would refer to as red flags, and those red flags get scrutinized. They get elevated up through our organization from a international documentation specialist, then to a compliance coordinator, all the way up to me occasionally. And I may even speak to the customer and try to ask them the appropriate questions, so we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that whoever we're going to sell to is got the right HS code. We don't have anybody who would be restricted through BIS or ITAR of any of that sort. So this is an everyday occurrence within a company that's involved in international business, certainly B2B as well.
And I just realized that I want to ask if Brian, the problem that Tom identified earlier, and we all talked about, like, you still have to have somebody, Tom, go off site to do that initial transaction and vetting. Can Avalara, or can that be solved for so that they don't have to have somebody dedicated to do this, Brian?
It certainly could, but Tom sounds like there could be another step in there. But yes, this is what we ask our customers to do and be proactive with, because we understand the complexities around identifying those goods. So storing them in the ERP is a proactive approach. Then all the process flow happens from there.
We had great 2 questions. Did you have?
Yeah, so that was exactly what I was going to ask. So when you are uploading your data into your system there, do you just put the first 6 digits and then you let the system automatically, depending on the country, put the last 4? Or how do you do that?
You mean when you're working with like an Avalara tool or something like that? So when you do that, what information does the company put into the system so that Avalara can tell you? How does this work?
Yeah, great question. So if it's an automated process flow, yeah, the answer is yes. We store that 6-digit code, and we ultimately allow our customers to check a box on which destination countries you plan on shipping that product to. It may be restricted from certain websites, localized websites. It may be prohibited. So we don't want to check that box. But what the system will do is take that 6-digit universal and automatically add that additional 4 digits, because we've done the pre-work. And if the customer checks out coming in from Europe, France, it'll select that additional 4 digits. Japan, additional 3. Germany, additional 6. So it recognizes that extension.
And so, but the company would put you the first 6, or you guys probably help with the first 6 too, though, if you upload the SKU set.
We're going to help you with the 10-digit. But what the automated system will do is recognize the 6. And when the checkout is happening in the business-to-business world, we already know who the customer is. We already know where it's coming from. So that 6-digit would be recognized a little sooner than at checkout.
Okay, so you don't even need to know the 6 digits, though. You're just your systems figure that out.
We definitely want to do that as pre-work. We definitely want to know the 6-digit ahead of time.
Meaning the company, the client, like, would have to provide that.
We do it on both ends, believe it or not.
Oh, you do it
on the outbound, on an invoice side, And we do it on an inbound when companies want to verify that these products are accurate on the inbound side of things.
Okay,
So with that 4-digit,
yeah,
kind of how is that determined? So for example, if you were making the footwear like you were showing on there and you intended it to be used as a slipper, but then you find out that the medical field is really using them for another purpose,
Good
where
question.
you could then get that 0% duty tariff. Can you switch over? I mean, how is that going to work?
You certainly could, and you want to use our rules and legal notes behind how you came up with that interpretation of your ruling. So we're going to be reactive to what you tell us on what the ruling should be on your product. What is it made for? So if you come back to us and say, yes, it's truly a medical slipper, we're going to use that ruling, those legal notes for you to be store in your system if you ever get audited, or if anyone ever comes to you and says, how did you determine it's made for medical? Our legal notes are going to back up what you've provided us on details on the front end.
okay. So the takeaway there, just real quick, is all slippers are now medical. And brushing your teeth is a medical action. And if you brush your teeth with the slippers on, I think they're medical.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That doesn't hold true for every country either, by the way. So keep that in mind too.
There's a lot more that goes into this than just making sure you have the right classification. One of the biggest holdups in international customs is errors in documentation.
You got it.
What does Avalara do other than classification? Like, what about commercial invoice, packing list, certificates of origin? I'm just not understanding, like.
Can you hear that?
what role you play.
So where our role comes in, and it's twofold. We have a team of 250 individuals that will go in and detail what that product is. If you have those, and if your manufacturing already does these things, it's possible. We have a ton of customers that come to us and say, we don't know how to interpret it. We don't know what it was made of. Whatever the case may be, we work with it and we automate it. So there is an automation tool that if you have 100,000 products, you don't want your team going in and researching 100,000 products. You may just allow us to run it through our automation tool to give you back that result within 24 or 48 hours.
And I think the question also is it just the HS code, or what about the packing slips and the other documentation? And if you're transacting online, where does Avalara begin and end if I'm going to sell online now?
So if you're selling online, we want to store two things. We want to store a taxability code, which Avalara is known for. The tax codes, not just in the US, but globally. And we want to store that HS code. So now when there's a calculation needed for that destination country and that product, it pulls the tax code, calculates the appropriate tax. It pulls the HS code, and then it calculates the appropriate tariff that was stored in your ERP or your e-com platform.
And then you can transact online direct.
Accurately.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a lot of questions here, and then we've had your big slide though. Which one should we go to first?
Well, we can start with either one. I'll just be brief of how we find a distributor that has the ability to do e-commerce, which this is about. And basically, we make our decision based on a relationship. Any potential distributor that has an interest on your goods will show you the best picture possible. So we are very keen on meeting them, traveling to the country of destination, and developing a relationship. And the one-on-one meeting is key for us. And based on that, it's a lot of our decision. Of course, we do analysis, we look at data, which is very important, but that relationship is important. And some of the red flags that will lead you to know that these guys may not be the right partner for either e-commerce or as a traditional distributor are some of the regular, how much experience do they have? How transparent are they with you on the pricing and the pricing model? One of the things we do from day one, we have an open book. This is what our margins are. What are your margins? What are you selling at? What are you going to sell to the end consumer, and what are the portals going to sell at? So we have to have the clear open book philosophy, which is also a red flag for us. On the regulatory side, how much experience they have with product registration. Have they done medicines in the past? A lot of distributors do dietary supplements, health and beauty, wet line for hair conditioners. But when it goes into medicine, although the products may be similar, it's much more on the regulatory side that medicines get really, really scrutinized. by every other government. And the last thing that we look for is what kind of terms are they looking for? Do we extend terms immediately or not? Everything with the end goal of jumping to an e-commerce channel. Do you want to the next slide, Josh? Any questions on this one?
No, let's do this real quick. And I want to stay within the focus of B2B e-commerce, but you and I have oscillated between D2C and B2B.
Sure, no problem. So I'll tell you exactly on the e-commerce specifically of this list that hopefully you have a copy of. I'll just focus on the pricing strategy, which has become a hot topic of sorts. Today, anyone can look at a price anywhere in the world from their laptop or their iPhone. It is a fact. So consumers are very concerned that why am I paying $30 for this cough syrup when in the US it costs $12? So the pressures have become such to compete on e-commerce that the margins have shrunk, both on my end, on our distributor, who is our e-commerce operator, as well as the platform that the product is being sold. And this is directly a result of globalization. I mean, you want to know how much is a kilo of rice in Africa? You can figure it out. So that's one of the biggest problems we deal with. Our product is a commodity in terms of a cough syrup is a cough syrup is a cough syrup. Although we're on the natural side, our customers are comparing to the in-country brand as well. So pricing pressures is a big problem that we're working with. Secondly, go ahead, Josh.
No, go. I got a question after.
Counterfeit is a big problem. It's easy to do a cough syrup in terms of mixing sugar and water and whatever in a bottle, as opposed to, say, Tom's products that you really need technology to make those parts. Over-the-counter natural medicine are easy to counterfeit, so that's an issue that we spend a lot of time on. And we're always chasing those bad guys that are posting their products on those platforms. And the platforms are very, very helpful, and they will shut anybody out or shut anybody down as long as you flag them right away. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, just real quick, and then we're going to go to John. But so I mean, this is one of the weird, crazy dynamics we have with B2B now. If you're selling B2B transacting online, you don't have as much visibility as the old school where you're visiting them and you're seeing them. And so when you talk about, I used to deal with this in China when I was at the embassy there, we'd have companies come in and they say, hey, someone's counterfeiting. It turns out it's their own distributor that's counterfeiting it, putting the same product in the empty, putting their like cousins, uncles, brothers product in the same container of the used product from the US company, right? So you have to have that in-country engagement, and there is a risk and a concern for a lot of B2B companies now saying, hey, I'm going to go straight to online.
One of the big attractions of selling online is the disruption of eliminating the intermediary. You have any case where a company is using its own website, either in the US or in each country, and no distributor local presence?
Yeah, so the question is, are there people who are just going B2B direct, selling wholesale though, in country without, sorry, yes.
That's what we've done for 15 years and $1 million later. We never went e-commerce. Like I probably never sold B2B e-commerce. Everything was through SBS Commerce, and the payments were just, direct payments to our account.
Okay, so you were doing, so because you weren't doing B2C, but you were going direct, but you were doing wholesale transactions. There are lots of companies that are doing it. They're selling it larger quantities online through their website. They usually have a login on their website. So instead of having it all front facing, you can know a little bit more about who's buying the product because there's a password you give. So you have a little bit more of a registration process for wholesale purchasing, but you can do it all online. You do not need to have somebody physically do it in country. The issue is also the marketing and the branding, which actually is where we're going to. So John, take it away. Thank you, Ben. We love you.
Awesome, guys. I'll do my best to give you the most impactful 5-minute presentation you've ever received. This is a bit of a deviation from the other items that were being discussed, but of course, at some point, you need to market whatever it is you're selling into these new markets you're targeting. And today, I really want to build the case objectively for why we really like digital PR as part of a blended SEO approach as a means to an end here. So just quickly, some jargon to clear up. SEO stands for search engine optimization. This idea of ranking higher in search engines. We're primarily, but not exclusively, talking about Google. and what goes into that. So a lot of people think of SEO from what we refer to as an on-page perspective. That is all the things you're going to tweak within your given website to help improve rankings. But what you may or may not know is that there's a big off-page component to SEO. That is things that happen off of your website that help you to rank. And I'm going to explain that in more detail in just a moment. But first, as far as building the case for why we want to take this blended digital PR and SEO approach, this can really be one of the most cost-effective ways to enter a new market. International SEO can be budget-friendly way to build awareness in new markets without the need for physical infrastructure, a lot of human capital. And done correctly, it really is a low-cost, high-return alternative to expensive international advertising campaigns or opening in physical locations. You're looking to achieve visibility on region-specific sites that attract targeted audiences for qualified traffic. It's reasonably easy to outsource and scale, and it really helps level the playing field, or this approach, I should say, of using digital PR and SEO helps level the playing field against some of the much larger competitors that are out there, which might seem as formidable forces that would be really hard to compete with. But if you can simply outrank them, well, that again really levels the playing field. And last but not least, done correctly, you're building trust through the use of third-party resources. Anybody that's ever read Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, knows that social proof is mission critical in currying favor and trust, regardless of whether you're marketing or sales or domestically or internationally, or even in your household and own relationship. Social proof is really important in building that trust where you need it. So next slide.
I went to the next slide already, and
Oh.
I think do through these and get some examples. It's great though.
Yeah, for sure. So you need to understand that thing that Google's looking for outside of what happens on your own website is who's linking to you. These are commonly referred to as backlinks. And part of an international SEO initiative would be to try to attract backlinks from third-party properties or websites. But here's the thing, not all backlinks are created equal. And a lot of the low-value, spammy ways to accrue backlinks, brand mentions on third-party sites have been really mitigated and no longer work. So it's much easier said than done to attract these backlinks.
Well, you've talked about associations, and in B2B space, it's great if you're making products for let's say poultry industry, and you're in the Poultry Industry Association of France. Can you talk a little bit about some of that stuff, or am I jumping ahead? I just want to. Oh gosh, yeah, I jumped ahead, but go.
Well, no, that's all right. So the more credible the site you're attracting the link from, the better. And the best way to get credible links from third-party sites at scale is through some form of actual PR, PR around real company behavior, activity, value-added resources you've created that are link worthy versus a spammy technique of just blasting bloggers and asking them to link to you or giving them money, things like that. And the slide you're currently on just mentions that CCTLDs end up being an important component of this. So if we're trying to rank higher in France, having a blended mix of, authoritative .coms or GTLDs mixed with these country-specific CCTLDs, such as .fr in France, are going to be really important to actually make that happen. Next slide, Josh.
Okay.
Right. So Google's going to give you some preferential treatment based on the CCTLDs that link to you. And in a lot of the country-specific search engines, like a Baidu in China or a Yandex in Russia, they're giving heavy preferential treatment to if you're accruing backlinks from the country-specific. Yes.
Yeah, Don, I know we don't have much time, but this is actually probably one of the biggest crux of the discussion, and we talked about it with this gentleman back there around the .coms versus the subdomains. So what I'm understanding here, right, is if you are committed to the market, and you're going to be putting money into this, then getting the CCTLDs, which are basically the .cns, .frs, will give you from a localized perspective, a better search ranking than a .com globally.
Well,
tell us more about that.
Yes, no, the key distinction here is on-site versus off-site SEO. So far in the discussion, you guys have talked about this from an on-page perspective, what you do with your own site. So regardless of what you do with your own site, you want to attract backlinks from third-party websites that have the corresponding CCTLD, right? If I want to outrank the major players in France related to children's medication, generally speaking, I want to be attracting some links back to my site from websites that are using a .fr domain. Okay, but
yeah, sorry, go. That's huge. So so you're saying like, yes, the answer is a .fr is good for the origination of that link should come from a local site, but your global site could still be .com/fr.
Yes, correct. Very different distinction between what you do with your own site and where you attract backlinks from. Put simply, if you want to validate to Google that you have a presence in a given market and that the citizens of that country care about what you're doing and see you as a credible resource, it behooves you to attract at least some backlinks from those .fr CCTLDs.
That's huge, John. So if you were going to guide people who are saying, hey, this agency is coming to me all day long, coming to my clients and saying, hey, I'm going to create a new website for you. It's going to be a .fr. It's going to be great for your SEO. What would your recommendation be? Is it that, no, just make sure you work on the backlinks coming from FRs. Your site yourself doesn't have to be. Can you talk about that?
So that conversation, again, framed from an on-site consideration perspective, and whether or not you use a subdomain, a subfolder, or a country-specific CCTLD is a big decision that has a lot to do with the resources you have available. But regardless of how you handle that with your own site, you absolutely want to be doing blogger outreach and digital PR strategies in a given market to try to attract some backlinks and recognition, visibility on these third-party sites with the corresponding CCTLD.
Thank you.
So I would skip to digital PR in action to give examples. In the interest of time, I just want to give a few examples on why I keep drawing this distinction between digital PR. Digital PR. Why do I keep calling it digital PR, what is commonly referred to as link building? Well, you know, in short, link building of the old used a lot of spammy and manipulative techniques to try to create backlinks at scale, directory submissions, link exchanges, exchanging money, things like that. A lot of that doesn't work anymore. So you need to come up with something valuable that people actually want to link to. So the next 3 slides outline like 12, 15 examples. Obviously, we don't have time to go through all those, but I'll go through a few. So that first example, this idea of a unique or surprising recipe collection, create a collection of surprising recipes using your food product, for example, that showcase an unexpected ways to use it, right? And something like this, food bloggers and culinary sites absolutely love because you're sharing unique, practical content that offers value to their readers and gives them something they can actually create a story around. A different approach, that third bullet down, a data-driven content or survey. Content like this is very linkable, and it's the type of stuff that journalists and food bloggers would be really interested in actually putting a link to. Food publications, bloggers, they love citing reports, especially if the data is new and insightful. And maybe we do just one more. If you skip to the next slide, Josh, bullet 5. Exclusive interviews or features with chefs, right? Collaborating with high-profile chefs or influencers gives a level of credibility and social proof or newsworthiness to your content that just writing some article about the origination of whatever it is you're selling won't give you that same level of, again, credibility and social proof that creating a collaborative piece will with other chefs. The added benefit whenever you collaborate with other food influencers is they're more likely to share it on their sites, which creates additional visibility to their audience and hopefully some backlinks that way as well. I've got a lot more I could share, but I think we might be out of time.
Yeah, before you close her out, I just want to say one more thing around that. So it's very exciting from a B2B perspective because I find B2B companies have a much tighter community to call upon, not just nationally, but internationally. People who really are into, give me an example of a company we got, B2B company. Anybody sell any client of yours? Let's say, okay, a machinery, a saw cutting equipment. The other day, we had a company that was at a expo and they took a quick video, 30 seconds or less, of somebody showing a demonstration of the hot dog that stops the blade. Those blades that stop if your finger gets close to it.
It's all stop.
What's it called?
The company's called SolStop, believe it or
Oh,
not.
yes. We had a viral video. They had, I think it was 4 million views on a video that was of a product that had been out for a while, but they just went by and took a quick video and then they posted it. And those types of things are really exciting for regenerating excitement around the world around a product. And you can do that. And then you can also send that, for example, over to an association in an overseas market. You can create better engagement, create content for them. And I think there's a lot of stuff you can do when you're speaking to your like-minded B2B audience overseas. We want to thank you guys for coming, for zooming in. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
guys. Have a good rest of your conference.
These are all the QR codes. If you want to talk to somebody, you just use your phone and zoom in. Do you want to take a photo?
We'd answer any questions offline if somebody reaches through the QR code anytime, any day. Good luck to you all.
Yeah.